Astrology folks on
Oh,
Mars at 3. So
what? Oh, I don't even have my microphone down. I'm not even prepared today. I'm not even prepared today. What channel is that on?
that's Lily DeCorley's channel. So we're just going to talk about Mars.
Yeah.
And, because she's the person I study astrology with, along with a group of other folks. So we sometimes do videos. So that is the other place, and it is we are taking it. It's a much different perspective here than this show. It's a astrology focused show, and it is a bit more woo woo, I would say. Than it may not have a lot of crossover appeal to the listeners of this show, but I do from time
Well,
to
you don't know.
time.
I mean,
I don't know that. I don't
yeah.
know, but it is strictly astrology, and it is a bit more woo woo than this show.
Yeah.
It is not it is a position. It is from the point of view of what is astrologically going on. It is not where we take the approach of being skeptics and are assessing things and in delving in and investigating stuff. It's a whole different thing. But
Right.
this is not the only place on YouTube where I am
Oop,
located.
my mic sounds weird today for some reason. I just want to make sure I have it on. Yeah, I have it on the right setting. I don't know what the deal is.
You
It's
sound like
sounding.
you to me.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, it was sounding weird coming through my headphones, but it seems to be okay. But yeah, we'll get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Slip into the Night or Slip into the Morning. Or I don't know until we get the schedule straightened around. I mean, the time that we might wind up doing our live recordings will be Saturday mornings. We're not sure yet. We will definitely keep you guys in the loop. As we know, this morning we will be talking about Stonehenge, the megalithic structure in the UK, Great Britain, land of the Brits. I mean, this is, I wouldn't say that this is one of the most poignant megalithic structures that's out there, but it's definitely one of the most famous. Extremely interesting place, but I don't know as I would say it's um, the most interesting of them out there. I'd just say it's gotten the most press out of the bunch.
Well, it's the one that people think of when they think of a Stonehenge or a stone circle.
Right, and there are far more henges out there than Stonehenge.
Yes, and some of them are older, and there are some that are bigger.
Mhm.
It is, though, perhaps the most famous, and it has been considered a World Heritage Site with the Avebury henge. Avebury is another henge that is. It's actually bigger than Stonehenge, but it doesn't have the same um, it doesn't have like the trilithons with the standing stones and the lintels. It just has standing stones in a circle, and the earthworks.
Yeah,
And
and I know
then
there's some that they've found from Google Earth. Like
yes, yep.
there's some henges that they were completely unaware of, and then they saw satellite imagery of the areas, and they were like, "Oh shit!" Like they could see,
Yeah.
'cause, with a lot of these henges, the earth itself is much like kind of like the serpent mound is. The way the serpent mound is mounded up, these henges have this. It's a circular all the way around the outside,
Yep.
and some of them actually even have openings. I do
Yep.
believe.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it is an interesting phenomenon, and it goes back to. I know that you're aware of the different traditions, spiritual. I would say spiritual, quote unquote, traditions where you know everything is done within a circle. You're enclosing yourself in a circle, like a protective shroud. And these hinges kind of like amplify, to me, they kind of amplify that. That's what I see them as. I see them as a ritualistic tool. Now I could be totally wrong. They could have been something totally different, but that's the way I see it. I see Stonehenge, places like that, as one big fucking ritual tool piece that you can use and utilize. You know, based on the time of year, and there was even things like, I was looking at the thing that you had sent me. There was even places for them to arrange things outside of the center circle.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It does seem like, well, most likely it had a variety of uses, I would think. It's what I took from the article that we read and doing the research was that they don't know who built it, and there is some assumption that it was Druids, but it may be actually far older than what we understand as the Druidic Celtic culture, and it may actually predate that. It may have had some like ceremonial grave site because they've found like cremated remains there, and so it may have had something to do with death or burial stuff. But it also has astronomical alignments, to the winter and summer solstices, and is configured to the movements of the moon. So it may have had a calendar type of a feature to it. So there's so much more that we don't know. And then part of the mystery is that some of the stones used in Stonehenge are not native to the local area, particularly what they call the Preseli blue stones, which are from like a place in Wales in the UK, which is like hundreds of miles away. And so part of the mystery is, how did a Stone Age culture that what we conceive of as just being like hunter gatherers move these very, stones that weigh tons, hundreds of miles?
Yeah. Well,
And
there's, I guess, I was reading that thing that you'd sent me, and blah, 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 blah. There's a new theory that they were brought from glacial deposits much nearer to the site, which have been carried down from the northern side of the Preselius to southern England by the Irish Sea Glacier. And if they had been that close, they would have only been like 1.8 miles away.
Yeah.
Now still, that's quite a distance to get those stones. I mean, even either or, it's still quite a distance to get something that large. However, that would explain things a little bit more. I noticed something the other day, and this is kind of off topic, but kind of on topic because we're talking about megalithic structures. Did you see that they've unearthed something else in Turkey?
I did. I meant to send you that article, and
Or
it's
it's
like,
old, and they're saying it's older than Göbekli Tepe, and it has a sewer system.
and it's huge.
Yeah, it's
It's
massive.
huge, massive.
Yeah, and these are the things, like, when things like this get uncovered, this is the stuff that I'm fascinated about, because it just took the history of man and pushed it back like an insane amount of years, because they're saying hunter gatherers. Well, hunter gatherers didn't have sewers.
Absolutely. And I mean, beyond that, it's like civilization. They've been saying, so civilization started in the Fertile Crescent.
And this is the thing. This is the thing with these fucking archaeologists and these scientists that have their heads so far up their fucking asses. Get out of that. Get out of that outdated, fucking closed-minded bullshit. I mean, start thinking outside the box. The Egyptologists are the reason that there's fucking problems in Egypt trying to fucking get anything done with the investigating the pyramids or the Sphinx. And it's outdated beliefs that keep holding this shit up. And when you have something like this that gets unearthed, that definitely puts us back. Like, it doesn't set back humanity, it sets back the history of humanity. It's just like, why? Why are they so rigid? Why can nobody bend? That I do not understand at all. You gotta stand firm in your beliefs. God damn it. God damn it. No dissension in the ranks. I don't get it. I don't fucking get it. But I saw that article and I was like, ooh, this is fucking cool.
That was, yes, very exciting. And you know, one of the things I took from the article was that what they have found for burial remains, they have done some genetic testing, and they found that the people in the UK who are the burials associated with Stonehenge have genetic lineage to the area of Turkey. And I thought, huh, Turkey, where there's Göbekli Tepe and
Yeah.
stone circles.
Yeah, stone circles that were erected and then buried and then
And there,
erected and buried.
and earthworks.
Yeah, it just these massive undertakings that these people did
Hmm.
that go against everything that they say about the time.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, why are they still holding on to it? Like, these ideas that the history of man had to have definitely started here. No. And we're finding that more and more. No, that's not the answer. The history of man is a far deeper well than anyone wants to admit. Because it destroys people's belief structures, how things have happened. But man's been around a lot longer. The civilized man that we know has been around a lot longer than anyone is willing to admit at this point, I think.
Hmm.
And places
Well,
like Stonehenge, I think in a way prove that.
because it's so sophisticated, and it really is unexplained, and the how it's actually constructed and is often kind of a little bit um directed, and people are directed into other places, but it's like, how did they really do it with the technology that you're saying they had?
Mhm.
um because the stones are so big, and you see this in many other locations, not just in Göbekli Tepe, and not just in Stonehenge and the Henge circles in the UK, but you know the pyramids. And then one of the sites that I'm becoming really fascinated is the site of Baalbek in, I think it's Syria.
Mhm.
And those um stone structures have stones that are rectangular, and they are legitimately 30 tons, and they are so huge. And it's like, how would we move them today, not just 6 to 10,000 years ago?
Well, look at the Coral Castle, that the guy
Hmm.
built supposedly by himself.
Well, right, and he kind of alluded that he had some kind of technology that had been
Lost.
lost.
Yeah. And the
And
only
then,
thing they ever could equate to it was this box that
mhm,
he had, and there were I mean, no one ever came to any conclusions of how he actually did it, but
mhm,
he was able to do all that by himself,
yeah,
which is crazy.
mhm,
And I mean, I think we've gone over that on the 40 and slip a couple of different times, but
mhm,
um, it's one of the ones that fascinates me. But
mhm,
you look at some place like Stonehenge, and then
mhm,
they start finding all of these other henges all over the place. So they didn't have just this one place. There were many, and like you were saying, there were places that were fucking huge.
yeah. The Avebury henge, the town of Avebury, if you look at the pictures, is just in the center of the henge.
Yeah, it's one big massive fucking henge.
Yeah, and it's bigger than a little village, and I mean, that's just a huge area for what we're being told by traditional history, that the population wasn't even that big 10,000 years, and that they're spending their time moving all these stones
Yeah.
to make these giant stones and moving earthworks. And they say, well, they did it over centuries. Okay, but you still had to have a certain amount of culture and civilization to keep that going.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
A lot of what they say doesn't make sense. And I'm not one of those people trying to make out fucking ancient alien theories. I'm not trying to say that there was some type of magic or quote unquote magic involved. All I'm saying is that I think that the technology of man rose at one point to a very sophisticated level. And I think that some of that technology bled over and was left over after a fall. And that what we would consider prehistoric man was actually the leftover remnants of man before.
mhm.
So you have a lot of these people, I think, in my opinion, who were trying to recreate things using technology that they didn't understand. Maybe that's my like kind of theory on the whole thing, because I think that civilization rose once and fell,
Mhm.
and it makes no sense. Like if civilization was really sophisticated at one point, why would they be making, besides to say this is here, let's make something that stands the test of time? Like, why would they make those things?
Mhm.
Like, we're a sophisticated culture. And besides, like, skyscrapers and shit, we don't really make a lot of stuff that's gonna be around.
Mhm.
So I just don't. To me, it doesn't make much sense. Like you were saying, why were they putting their time into this? We don't put our time into it. And we have sophisticated technology. We don't, but they did.
Yeah, and I mean, and we see this kind of worldwide with like the pyramids and stone structures in Central and South America. We see it in Asia. We see it in Africa. It is worldwide phenomenon that there are these megalithic structures. Um, it's really, we tend to assess them one site at a time, but if we look at them across the board, there is a lot of building across the planet of these kind of intriguing sites that we don't really understand, and we don't really understand how they were made.
Yeah. Yeah, and to answer the question, or to address the statement in the chat room, there. How do we know that though? Like, how do we know that for sure that that would remain and it wouldn't show up in some other way? I mean, the way things happen, uh, the way things happen in over time and things just disappear. Um, I just don't know if the carbon left. I don't know if it would be seen as something else. I mean, the dinosaurs turned into fucking oil. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if, because I think that the timeline of people is a lot longer. So if there was any type of pollution like that, manufacturing, it I think time would have kind of washed it away, so to speak. Maybe. I'm just a fucking idiot with a microphone. So what the fuck do I know? Yeah, dinosaur bones are still around, but the fact of the matter is things change as well. So if you're looking at like things that are in the air, maybe we're attributing it to something else, like a volcanic eruption, because a volcanic eruption spew all kinds of shit into the air, and maybe that covered it up. I don't know. All I'm saying is there are a lot of things that point to the fact that civilization was a lot more technologically advanced at one point. And then all of a sudden people were like fucking hunter-gatherers again. So it seems to me like something very strange happened. But again, just an idiot with a microphone. Holly, your thoughts?
Well, I mean,
No, am I an idiot with a microphone?
aw, that is not a fair thing. And here's the thing: like, if we don't actually question what's going on and just take the history as it's given to us,
yeah,
we're just kind of being complicit in a story, which
exactly.
and for me personally, like, maybe there's just too many of these archaeological sites that we just don't seem to have good answers for. And I think the point about pollution, if we don't know how they lived in their society. Maybe they were much more eco-conscious than we are, and they didn't create plastics and nuclear waste or those types of things because they had
maybe they found a better way, quote unquote. Who knows?
Who knows? It may have been really different, or maybe the theory of the planetary pole shift is somewhat accurate in most of their civilizations at the bottom of the ocean right now. So,
or in Antarctica, that's another theory.
Antarctica, there's a lot of
there's a theory that that's where Atlantis is, or that's where the focal point of civilization was at one point, and now it's fucking, of course, buried under ice and snow.
Snow, miles of water,
yeah.
and sludge at the bottom of the ocean, and we're just kind of seeing the endpoint remnants of it, of kind of like the survivors who got away. I mean, we do have legends of global cataclysm.
Yeah.
The story of the flood, the story of Atlantis, the story of Lemuria.
Yeah, and the Mahabharata, all of that shit. They talk about great sky battles and fucking Vimanas and shit. So nobody knows.
But we have stories, and what we have is stories from trauma, potentially stories of actual cataclysm from people who may have lived through it and been extremely traumatized, and then had gone from a higher state of civilization to a lower state of civilization and had to recover and lost some of their technology. But so we don't know. And then there is also that potential that there are some people who do know, and they are keeping the truth for whatever.
Well, one of my favorite people is Robert Schoch, and he talks about the water erosion that's fairly obvious on the Sphinx. That basically proves that that's been around since there was rainfall in that area, which of course sets the date back like a lot further. And he's talked about all the pushback from the Egyptologists and mainstream archaeologists about the whole thing. And it's like, why? What is the big deal? Why can't things change? Why can't we bend? Why can't we find new information and then alter the course? It to me, it just seems so fucking silly to not know the truth of the matter. And you look at these places and these different things, like the Sphinx, like Stonehenge, the pyramids, Göbekli Tepe, and you're just like, why does it not make sense to get the full picture when these structures that we keep finding keep pushing the date back further and further? So now hunter-gatherers that built Göbekli Tepe also built sewer systems, basically public toilets. That's what we're supposed to believe now. Because you know goddamn well that there are going to be archaeologists out there who are going to still stick to the whole fucking hunter-gatherer idea. Because what was it? Someone was saying that we found how they built Göbekli Tepe was they used alcohol.
What?
Yeah,
Alcohol?
there's a theory that because they found alcohol at Göbekli Tepe, that they bribed people to work using alcohol. That's how they got the hunter gatherers to come together and build this great megalithic structure was booze.
So what you're saying is that there was a remnant of a high society, and they had kind of escaped whatever cataclysm that destroyed their civilization, and they went to a more hunter-gatherer society and enlisted the population with booze,
With booze, that's what they're saying.
with booze, and
built Göbekli Tepe.
and built Göbekli Tepe.
And then they were like, "Hey, let's bury this. Here's some more booze. Let's build it again." I mean, the fucking way that they try to explain some of this stuff to me seems childish. Like, we're not children. You know, we're people on the face of the planet. Like, the truth is more important. You know, but back to Stonehenge anyway. The alignments of this thing too. Like, I was looking at the article that you sent me.
Did it say that Stonehenge was built on booze?
I know. I didn't see that.
Because the UK is very famous for their ales. So I can see how someone could make that correlation.
Yeah. I'm gonna share the picture so everybody can see.
Yes, the Y and Z holes.
Yeah, these and this is what I mean by, like, they were able to, beyond the stuff that's in the center of the henge, they were able to coordinate other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's pretty intricate.
Oh, it's extremely intricate. I mean, it's a sophisticated site. I mean, it takes a lot of thought, and the fact that even before they put the stones up, they probably had wooden structures there, kind of mapping things out. They were using it to make some astronomical alignments to the solstices in certain constellations. I mean, it required some understanding of mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
of positioning. If you're into ley lines, they say that it's on a ley line, magnetic field line. So there would have been some kind of appreciation of ley lines, whatever their civilization or culture considered them, whether it would be like, actual magnetic field or some kind of just places of power. A lot of cultures just call those places where the magnetic lines can converge as places of power, and they erect monuments there. But yes, they could do more because of all the incremental, like the post holes and the what they call the Y holes and the Z holes.
Right. Well, it just allowed for them it's obvious that they were doing much more than just utilizing the structures that were there, coordinated to the heavens. I mean, there's a lot more going on there than just that. To me, it was used for ritualistic purposes, whether it was some sort of huge religious thing or just done by or used by a smaller number of people. I don't know what the how it was used ultimately, but I definitely think that it was some sort of it was a ritualistic thing, because you look at all of these things that are there, and it just makes sense that
Mhm,
it was utilized as some sort of ritualistic tool. Because
mhm,
anytime I see any type of circles, it's a
mhm.
closing off. You're encircling, you're enshrouding yourself in something. Uh, that's how I see it. And they were using the power of the heavens in conjunction with that.
Right. So the circle in a lot of like indigenous spirituality is a creating of a sacred space for
Hmm.
whatever is the ceremony, the intent of um here it's just a massively huge sacred space, uh, uh, potentially sacred space.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, there's a lot made of where it's located that it is in alignment with certain like it seems I read an article that it is maybe has some alignments with the constellation of Orion, which is also associated with the Great Pyramids. um it is a constellation that does look like a torso, and that they may have had their some kind of um, significance to the rising of that constellation at certain times of the year. You know, we can kind of speculate. We just don't know for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And as with all of these things, it's almost it's almost all speculation, and it's going to remain speculation, I think. And unless somebody comes out with a book that says this is what they said it is. We found the book, we found the scroll. And until that fucking happens, that we don't know. I mean,
Well,
we just make everybody's got their theories. There's we know that this thing was built to be, like I said, to be utilized in conjunction with the solstices, with the heavens.
mhm,
There's definitely some uh, astronomical correlations to almost every single one of these megalithic structures.
mhm.
Then what's that one, the Stonehenge they got out in the desert? It's like in Iraq or something, or somewhere. I can't. It's small though. It's not like Stonehenge. It's very small.
Mhm,
But the the way it's set up to catch the sun or the moon or the constellation in this area, or a point to it there, it's unbelievable.
mhm,
The same type of thing, you know,
mhm,
but just a small one that somebody
mhm,
put out in the desert, and it's been there for like a long time.
mhm. Yeah, with we have that Google power now and satellite, we can view more and more of the landscape and find things that might be buried, or what we thought were hills, or may actually look like, you know, underneath the human structures. To really kind of see the you know, I would love to see like a bigger mapping project to show where all these kind of ancient structures are,
Hmm.
and what they look like, and see what how they are similar to each other. Um, you know, we have these Mesolithic sites in in um, in New England. The one I'm thinking of in New Hampshire is you know, has skepticism on if it's true or if it's been manipulated. It's called Mystery Hill, or America's Stonehenge.
Hmm.
I've been there. Some of it does feel very old to me. It does have astronomical alignments associated with it. Um, Now, to the extent that it's been manipulated to make it kind of a like a tourist trap type thing. I don't know, but it's certainly very interesting, and
Yeah.
it's really relatively uninvestigated as a legitimate archaeological site. I mean, they
Yeah.
have done some digs there, but it's kind of been swept a little bit under the rugs as something like legitimately investigated because we don't really seem to want to go to the place of maybe there were other people here before the native indigenous Americans
Right.
building stone structures that have
Yeah.
things in common with the European stone structures.
Yeah, and there's some big speculation about that, like the Great American Civilization. I think Graham Hancock has some stuff on that. He's got some fascinating work. He's the one that really is the proponent of the fact that human beings are were a race of people that have just uh, we have amnesia about our own history. We lost it, and we don't remember who we were or are, for that matter. Um, and and that our history is insanely lost. That far we were a far bigger civilization than we know at one point in time. But and one of those things is that there was civilization in the Americas, and people. You're right. People don't like to go down that road, but it is a road that some people go down.
Absolutely. And I mean, I have been to that site, and I also know up in North, like Woodstock, Vermont, there are also similar stone structures, stone circles, stone huts that have astronomical alignments. So there is evidence in the United States of this kind of Stonehenge building culture. Our sites are just not as famous or well investigated as Stonehenge.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'm often surprised that, like, with the Serpent Mound, like, people don't really know about that. I mean, it's
mhm,
not this insane structure, by any
mhm,
stretch,
mhm,
but it's pretty crazy.
mhm,
And supposedly there was, like, a huge rock at the front of it, at the center.
mhm,
Um, so I just, some of these things that we have here are pretty crazy. There's some stuff that's out in the deserts, the Anasazi built, supposedly, that's pretty crazy. Is it the Anasazi? No, I can't remember the name of the actual Indians out there. I'm probably fucking it all up. Um, but there's some structures out there that are astronomically aligned. They're perfectly, like, the structures are perfectly built.
mhm,
Um, and this was supposedly done by, Native Americans.
mhm.
You know, that's what we're supposed to believe, that all this stuff was just done by, Native Americans who didn't have much of anything technologically until the Europeans arrived. It is the Pueblos, but there's a certain name for them, and I know I'm probably fucking it up, so I'm not even gonna try anymore. But
Yeah, I'm
uh,
thinking of Chaco Canyon.
yes, that's
Yes,
the one, Chaco Canyon.
Canyon is really interesting site that, and it's pretty remote now, so people really don't go there very often. I think you have to hike out to it, but it is, you know, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think of a lot of uh these structures, um especially the circular stuff. I think they were definitely utilized for ritualistic purposes. um
Mhm,
you know um now I don't know to what extent. I don't know. um I'm not going to make any speculations about that sort of thing, but from what I can tell, when I see a circle, um that's what I see, especially when we're talking about, an earlier culture. You're looking at something that's astronomically aligned. I mean, any of the stuff that I know about with ritual magic or any of the other type of stuff, you're doing them on either at certain times of the year, you're using certain astronomical alignments or astrological alignments. And it just, to me, that makes sense. Like that's what they were using these things for.
Well, right. And so, like, what I've kind of studied in, circles tend to represent wholeness. Cross-culturally, it's kind of a universal symbol. And um, the calendar year is and the observation of nature also through time has had a lot of symbolic meaning with, especially in temperate cultures with, spring meaning rebirth and fall kind of going into the death and the stillness within, and then the solstices having symbolic meaning about, kind of that going in stillness of the womb space, and then, the summer is like the fullness of life. um yeah, in the circle, it can also be the snake eating its tail. That's kind of like infinity and going around.
Right.
There's a lot of symbolic meaning with the circle. There's the circle with the directions can give to the cardinal points of the compass can also have certain ceremonial and symbolic meaning given to the directions. A lot of like shamanic type spirituality, and possibly druidic or neo-druidic spirituality have meanings, and use what they call the medicine wheel or the compass points as a way of personal transformation because of the symbolic meaning of the different points and how everything is in a cycle. There's a way to process through things, and you see that in this kind of stone circles is a larger representation of that actually built upon the earth to kind of work through that kind of thought process. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly what they did at Stonehenge, but it's very,
Well, the reason why I
yeah.
say like someplace like Stonehenge was definitely built for some type of um ritualistic use is because of the alignments, the correlations. That's why I say that. It's not, you know, I don't see it just as some symbol on the ground. This was you. I see it as something that was utilized myself.
No, I don't think it's just a symbol on the ground. I think it's something that was utilized, but the symbolism is built into the site.
Oh yeah, and there's so much of it.
Now, it may not be exactly the same or, of what we have today, but there are parallels, is what I'm saying, in types of like, you know, indigenous earth-based spirituality
Hmm.
that use stones, that use the points of the compass, that use alignments like the east and the west, and being the setting and the rising points. That over time, human cultures have given symbolic meaning, and you can
Hmm.
kind of see that same kind of thought process in the circular Stonehenges like Stonehenge.
Yeah, and it's pretty incredible. Like
Hmm.
the intricacy of how well that's laid out to correlate with those things is, whew, it's pretty crazy. And it happens in a lot of these cultures all across the globe, where you have these structures that are laid out in these intricate patterns or correlations to astronomical alignments. It, it it's some pretty crazy shit, especially when
Hmm.
it's happening all over.
Hmm.
With early man.
Yes. Yeah.
And you
Agreed.
have a lot of these very similar types of things happening. That's the other thing. You got like the Karnak stones, which are just this fucking crazy thing. One of the few things that can be seen from space.
Yeah, the Karnak stones are something that I've been thinking about doing another episode
Oh yeah, just on the
dedicated
Karnak stones. Yeah,
just dedicated to the Karnak stones.
yeah.
Um,
But that's another stone structure that what the fuck just stretches forever. But that thing's huge. That makes Stonehenge look small.
yeah, it's huge. And I mean, just where are they getting the time and the energy
To do
to
all of
do
that.
all that when they're like supposedly just like barely surviving?
Yeah. A lot of what they say makes no sense when it comes to those types of explanations. And that's why I say I think having a more open mind and being willing to change and bend when it comes to these ancient histories. Let's stretch a little. Let's come to some conclusions. Let's not be stupid. Let's not be crazy and wacky. Let's stick with facts. But let's be a little bit more willing to bend and find an answer that makes a lot more sense to me, anyway. I don't know about the rest of everybody, but I think that it just makes no sense, especially when they find like I said, the thing like that they just found near Göbekli Tepe in Turkey.
Hmm.
That those types of discoveries, I'm just like, what? What are you talking about? You're just telling me that these people were hunter gatherers and they had to be bribed with booze to build the fucking Göbekli Tepe. Now we got fucking outdoor toilets and the whole nine yards. Like, what the fuck's going on? It's that's the type of stuff where I just start scratching my head and going, what are they talking about? When the what was it? The city there in Sumeria. They had fucking
Sumer or
they had a grid layout for their city like that. I mean, that stuff to me, it's crazy that shit was going on that long ago. That they were doing those sorts of things, and like we were talking about earlier, we don't know what types of technologies they developed. We don't know if they were, like you were saying, like eco-friendly.
hmm
That they were, maybe they had a better way of doing things. I don't know. But it's obvious that there was something to me. You look at any of the great legends, they all point to the same type of stuff. I'm not saying it was gods. I'm not saying it was ancient aliens. I'm saying I think that man had some pretty fucking cool technology at one point in time. And they could build some shit. Maybe fly around. Maybe it was like steampunk.
uh,
I don't know. But I think the answers that were being given are not necessarily the answers. I think that there's much more to the story than what we're told.
so I think kind of think about like what does that really mean though? Like if we've either completely lost the truth and we're reluctant to face it, to, or the truth is being hidden from us. So what does that really mean? And
Well,
if
I know and
you know what I'm
sometimes
saying?
sometimes I don't even think it's conspiratable. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think a lot of times it's people made discoveries and
Hmm.
made statements.
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want to go back on that.
They don't want to admit they're wrong.
Right. They don't want to back up on their statement. So that's what you have, a lot of these people who are out there who made these archaeological finds or whatever and wrote books that are based on these theories, and now they don't want to let go of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the biggest problems in that field,
Mm-hmm.
is that they need to bend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the history that we are uncovering is always changing. Not that history itself is changing, but our understanding of history is always changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where they need to really take a hard look at things. We're not trying to change history. We're trying to change how we look at it. Because the way we're looking at it now is completely fucking wrong. I don't buy it. And I don't know if there's going to be a time where I can buy it.
I think like you and I would like to have just a very, very facts based outline of how old things are or could potentially be, and just say, you know, and take a lot of the speculation out
Yeah.
and just say, you know, this is old and we don't know how it was really built.
Well, and you know, accept that there are things that are facts, whether you like them or not. You know, that's the part that gets me, is that there are things that are obvious facts. Like for me, the water erosion, it is fucking crazy.
Around the Sphinx meeting.
The Sphinx in that area in the pyramids.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff is nuts. And the fact that they won't, you know, take another look at the history and how they're portraying it, and that they demonize this guy for his findings is, ugh, it baffles me, really. So I'd love for things to change. I'd love for people to have more open minds about these topics, because they're fascinating. To the idea that these things are around in and of itself, to me, is fascinating. The pyramids, Stonehenge, you know, the Sphinx, Göbekli Tepe, the
Mm-hmm.
Darren Kuyu.
Mm-hmm.
The list is fucking huge.
You know, some of the cities in India that seem to have really old structures in them as well.
Yeah, was it the Temple of the Sun? Is that the one or the moon in Mexico or Central America there? The Mayan one. I can't remember which one it is.
There's
That fucking thing. Chichen Itza.
Chichen Itza and Teotihuacan are very old.
Yeah.
Machu Picchu, some of the in the Sacsayhuaman stones also, they ask a lot of questions. And then I think there's a lot of stuff in Asia that we really haven't thought enough about,
Mhm.
or some people have, but they're like, I know there's a city on the coast of India that they have um I can't remember the name of the town, but it's a coastal town, and they found like ruins in the like the harbor, and they had legends that a part of the ancient city had been um taken over by like a tsunami or something, and then they found it, and it's down there, and it's um a lot of um places that we are not familiar with that are still out there that could be very old.
Yeah. There's tons. I'm sure there's places we haven't even begun to uncover yet. There's places we probably have walked over for thousands of years that nobody knows is there. I would put money on it. Happens all the time. You know, all of a sudden somebody starts digging somewhere and they find shit. Ah! This changes everything we know. But does it really? Like the history doesn't change. You know, and I think that's the problem. Is that it needs to, like, when we find these things, we need to be willing to bend and be willing to, incorporate the new facts into the history and then change the fucking history to, so that all of the facts fit. Not make the facts fit the history that we want to tell. Make the history fit the facts, not vice versa. And that doesn't make sense.
Thanks to the listener who is Harana Music, who's pointing out the Harappan civilization of the Indus Valley that I'm getting stuck on.
That keeps making you pause.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, Karana Music, for totally throwing Holly off her game while we're trying to do the show. Because she can't manage to not look at the chat.
I gotta turn the chat off. I'm becoming Steve. I'm becoming Steve over here.
I fucking block it out. I can look at it, but I can block it out.
You've been doing this a lot longer than me, Chris.
Actually, I haven't had to. I've only been dealing with chat being in my line of sight for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a different thing, changing over to this format and being able to actually interact with the people that are listening. So, but no, cool. I think that I definitely think that there's a lot of things that are out there that we don't know about. There's some great podcasts that were done with Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson on Joe Rogan. And those two also do some great appearances together, I do believe, on some other podcasts. I think just their own. And if you can look up their stuff, they do a lot of the stuff about the early Americas and things that may have been going on here earlier on than people like to admit. But there's some crazy findings if you look into what they're talking about. But yeah, the stuff that has existed that we know about, well, all the other stuff exists too, but the stuff that we've already found that we know about, that's, like I said, over in Turkey, India. I mean, it's too bad like China is really closed off to everybody, because they're saying that there's probably some stuff in China that's pretty fucking crazy as far as pyramids go.
Yeah, I saw that too. And I thought that was really, really interesting.
And they don't let anyone near it either.
And they're doing a lot of they have that giant dam that they're building that's on, I think, the Yangtze River, that they are really doing a lot to change their own landscapes too. And I had never heard this before, but in Japan there are these like key-shaped mounds with moats around them that are also quite old. And I was like, there's still a lot out there that we're not quite aware of.
Oh yeah, there's so much out there that we're not aware of. I think the vast amount is that we don't know. If you look at the amount of cities that are buried underwater, just underwater, forget underground, under sand or dirt, just underwater. And the fact that we don't have a lot of answers for that shit. You know, the Aegean Sea, just filled with cities. It's nuts.
Agreed.
You know, and what we know doesn't scratch the surface of what we don't know. In my opinion, we know a lot, and what we know is not even a fraction. Not even a friggin' teardrop in the ocean. In my humble opinion, I think there's a lot more to learn about what has happened here on planet Earth. And I'm just talking about with human beings, not the whole fucking thing, just human beings. So, but on that note, Holly, are you still with me?
I
Get
am.
lost?
I am still with you. I'm just.
You're gone in your brain.
I'm somewhat contemplating Stonehenge. So, yeah, which I really like, and I'm not quite sure I can like do justice to how fascinating that I think this site is. So
Well, we'll have to take another stab at it where you really go in depth.
I don't know. That might bore people.
I don't give a
I
shit.
don't know if people
We can
are
try to make it
interested in that,
interesting.
but
You can make anything interesting, Holly, if you try. If you try.
yeah.
I mean, hell.
But yeah, that's Stonehenge.
People watch unboxing videos, so I mean, I'm pretty sure like an understanding of Stonehenge might
an
give some
unboxing
people some entertainment.
Unboxing of Stonehenge.
Yeah, so unbox Stonehenge. It's a good idea.
I think we should do a field trip to America's Stonehenge.
We should. That's something I do want to do, and we should plan a trip over there and maybe take some video, do some. Well, obviously take some pictures of the area, but because I have been wanting to go out there, and because I've known about it for a long time. But I've just never made it out there, and I've made many trips to New Hampshire, but never managed to make it there.
Yeah,
which is surprising for me because, you'd think it would have been on my radar, and hell, I went down to the Serpent Mound, but no, I have not made it to America's Stonehenge yet. So, yeah, I'm gonna try to put that on the list of places to go. In the very near future. We should plan it probably in the spring, I would say.
It's open year round.
Yeah, I hate the winter though.
Yeah, neither you or I like the cold.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, and I think I'd rather go after everything's thawed out and when things are starting to get green again. I think that would be cool.
Yeah. Yep.
So we'll plan that, and that can be a future show topic.
Our little adventure.
The adventure to America's Stonehenge.
I know. I've had some crazy meditations there. So.
Oh, cool. So yeah, we'll wrap this up, and we will be back next week. Actually, is it next week? Will we still be able to do a show?
I can do a show. Oh, you turned down the music.
Yeah, I turned on the music.
Thank you. I can do a show next Saturday. The following Saturday, I'm going to be away, and then but should be home on Sunday, so we can talk off air if we're going to do a makeup show or if we'll just wait to the following Sunday, which is like the 28th.
Okay. And we'll figure out a topic for next week's show. And like I said, until the end of the year, we're going to be doing the show on Saturdays, probably around 10 a.m. So we will keep you updated as far as how we're going to change that out. But until then, enjoy your weekend and have a wonderful time.